25 years, 25 years of my life, and he hands me a velvet box with my sister's name engraved inside. That's what my husband said to me. Right there. In the middle of Per Se, surrounded by our closest friends, my parents who flew in from Boston, and our business partners. Mark looked me dead in the eye, smiled that same crooked smile I fell for when I was 23, and said, "Happy anniversary, Claire. I had this custom made just for you." I opened the box, and I saw it. A diamond necklace. Stunning. Probably $20,000. Easy. But engraved on the back of that clasp, in tiny, perfect gold letters, it read, "Forever yours, Sarah." My hands didn't shake. Not at first. I think my brain just short-circuited. You know that feeling when you're falling in a dream? That split second before the panic hits? That was me. Standing in my silver anniversary dress, holding proof that my husband had been sleeping with my baby sister. If this were you, if you just opened the gift your husband gave you for your 25th anniversary and saw your sister's name inside, what would you do? Would you scream? Would you cry? Would you flip the table? Because I did none of those things. I smiled. I looked Mark dead in the eye, held up that necklace, and I said, "Honey, I think you got me confused with Sarah again." The table went silent. And in that silence, I realized something that should have broken me, but instead, it set me free. Am I in the wrong for what I did next? You tell me. But before you judge, you need to hear the whole story. Hit that subscribe button and stay with me, because this gets so much worse before it gets better. And trust me, by the end of this, you're going to be just as furious as I was, maybe even more. Look, I need you to understand something before we go any further. I was not some naive housewife who didn't see the signs. I was a 48-year-old woman who built a multi-million-dollar real estate firm from nothing. I raised 2 kids. I kept my body in shape. I was a good wife, a good mother, a good sister, and I trusted the 2 people who ultimately betrayed me the most. Mark and I met in college, NYU. He was pre-law, I was business. We were that couple everyone envied, the power couple. By 28, we had our first loft in Soho. By 35, we moved into our penthouse on the Upper East Side. By 40, we had Clark and Bennett Realty, my name first, because the company was my brainchild. And Mark knew it. He was the COO, I was the CEO. And Sarah? Sarah was my little sister, 5 years younger. The one I let live in our guest room for 2 years when she couldn't make rent. The one I gave a job to when nobody else would hire her. The one I defended at every family dinner when our mother called her a disappointment. I need you to feel that. I need you to understand how much I loved them. Because that's the only way you'll understand how much it hurt when I found out. It started 3 months before the anniversary. Little things. Mark started keeping his phone face down on the nightstand. He'd never done that before. In 25 years, we never had password secrets. But now, suddenly, he was taking calls in his study with the door closed. He'd say it was client-sensitive information. And I bought it, because why wouldn't I? This was Mark. My Mark. Then Sarah started showing up more. "Oh, I was just in the neighborhood. Manhattan is 8 miles long, Claire. Nobody is just in the neighborhood of a penthouse on East 72nd unless they're visiting." But I welcomed her. I made her tea. I listened to her complain about her love life, her dead-end job, the job I gave her. And all the while, she was looking at my husband like he was the last lifeboat on the Titanic. I remember the exact moment I knew something was really wrong. It was a Tuesday. Mark told me he had a late meeting with the zoning board in Brooklyn. I didn't think anything of it until I was driving back from a showing in Chelsea and I saw his car. Not in Brooklyn, in Midtown, parked outside the Four Seasons. And walking in arm, wearing sunglasses like they were famous, were Mark and my sister. My hands went numb on the steering wheel. I actually pulled over and threw up in a Starbucks parking lot. Not my finest moment, but hey, real life isn't pretty. Here's the thing though, I'm a businesswoman. I don't act on emotion, I act on information. So instead of confronting them right then and there, I did what any rational person with resources would do. I hired a private investigator. And let me tell you, what he found didn't just break my heart. It lit a fire in me that still burns to this day. They'd been having an affair for 2 years. 2 years. While I was planning our 25th anniversary, while I was helping Sarah get her finances in order, while I was lying in bed next to Mark wondering why he seemed distant, he was sending my sister texts like, I can't wait until she's out of the picture. You'll have everything she has, but you'll actually appreciate it. Let that sink in. Read it again. Until she's out of the picture. I wasn't just being cheated on. I was being erased. But wait, it gets worse. And I need you to stay with me here, because this is where your blood is going to boil. The PI hacked into their shared cloud legally, through some metadata thing I don't fully understand, and found documents. Financial documents. Mark and Sarah weren't just having an affair. They were planning a hostile takeover of my company. Mark had been slowly altering contracts, backdating signatures, creating shell accounts. They were going to force me out as CEO, claim I was mentally unfit due to stress, and split my empire between them. I sat in my lawyer's office on Park Avenue for 4 hours that day. I didn't cry. I just stared at those documents and felt something inside me shift. It wasn't grief. It was clarity. These two people, my husband, my blood, thought they could steal my life because I loved them. They thought my loyalty made me weak. And that was their biggest mistake. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I played the part of the clueless wife for 90 days. 90 days of smiling across the dinner table. 90 days of hugging Sarah when she came over. 90 days of pretending I didn't know that every late meeting was a hotel reservation I was paying for with our joint credit card. Do you know what that does to a person? To sleep next to a man who wants to destroy you? To break bread with your sister who wants to wear your life like a costume, it tears you apart. But I held it together because I was building something they couldn't see, a net, and they were walking right into it. I transferred 80% of our liquid assets into a trust fund he didn't know existed. I changed the beneficiary on every insurance policy. I met with our board of directors, my board, and showed them the preliminary evidence of Mark's financial tampering. I had my CFO freeze the accounts Mark had access to, and I planned the anniversary party. Oh, I planned the hell out of that party. I invited everyone, our kids Emma and Jake, home from Cornell and Dartmouth, my parents, Mark's parents, every major investor, every broker, every journalist who'd ever covered our company. I wanted an audience. Because if you're going to kill a snake, you don't do it in the dark where nobody sees. You cut its head off under the brightest lights you can find. The night of the party, I was calm. More than calm, I was ice. Mark kept touching my waist, kissing my cheek, playing the devoted husband for the cameras. Sarah showed up in a red dress the same shade as my wedding bouquet. Can you believe that? And hugged me like she hadn't been planning my professional death for 8 months. And then came the gifts. Mark handed me that velvet box. Custom made, he said. Just for me. I opened it in front of everyone. The diamond caught the chandelier light. It was gorgeous. And then I turned it over, and I read the inscription. Forever yours, Sarah. Now, here's where I need to be completely honest with you. I didn't know he was going to hand me the wrong box. That wasn't part of my plan. My plan was to expose the financial fraud after dessert with a PowerPoint presentation and my attorney on speed dial. But Mark's stupid, arrogant, careless Mark handed me the necklace he'd had made for his mistress, the one meant for my sister. He couldn't even keep us straight after 25 years. The room went dead silent. I looked up. Mark's face went white. Sarah dropped her champagne glass, and I laughed. I laughed so hard my mother thought I was having a breakdown. You know what, Mark? I said, my voice carrying across that entire dining room. I think you got your wives mixed up. Again, the word wives hung in the air like smoke. Mark stammered. Claire, it's a mistake. The jeweler must have engraved the wrong name. I finished for him. On the $20,000 necklace you bought with our joint account? Gosh, that is embarrassing. But you know what's not a mistake? That's when I clicked the remote in my pocket. The projector screen behind me, set up for anniversary slideshow memories, suddenly lit up with the PI's report. Photos of them entering hotels, screenshots of their texts, the altered contracts, the shell company documents, the email from Sarah to Mark saying once she's committed, the board will have no choice but to make you CEO, then we can finally be together publicly. Committed, as in psychiatrically. They were going to have me declared unfit. My sister, my husband, they wanted to put me in a facility so they could take my company. The room erupted. Mark's father, a retired judge, stood up and just walked out. My mother screamed at Sarah. Our investors started talking over each other, pulling out phones. And Mark looked at me with pure hatred. You planned this, he said. Not a question. A realization. For 3 months, I said, my voice steady as stone, while you two were sneaking around, I was protecting everything you tried to steal. The accounts are frozen. The board knows. And this, I held up the necklace. This is going to look beautiful on Sarah when she testifies in family court, because I'm not just divorcing you, Mark, I'm burying you. Sarah tried to run. Can you believe that? She actually tried to run out of the restaurant. But my attorney, yeah, the one I'd hired 3 months prior, was standing by the door. He served her right there, in front of God and everyone, with a civil suit for conspiracy to commit fraud and emotional damages. Mark lunged at me. Actually lunged. Our son Jake, my sweet 6'2" son, stepped in front of him and shoved him back so hard Mark fell into the cake table. Red velvet everywhere. Symbolic, if you think about it. The police came. Not because I called them for the affair, adultery isn't a crime in New York, but because the financial fraud crossed state lines, and my attorney had already contacted the SEC. Mark was escorted out in handcuffs. Sarah followed, sobbing mascara down her face, screaming that I was ruining her life. Ruining her life? I gave her that life, and she tried to take mine. The party ended at midnight. I stood in the middle of that destroyed ballroom, surrounded by shattered glass and toppled centerpieces, and I felt nothing. Not joy, not sadness, just the quiet hum of a battlefield after the war is over. My daughter Emma hugged me and said, "Mom, how did you not fall apart?" And I told her the truth. I did fall apart, baby. I just did it quietly, where nobody could use it against me. That night, I went home to my penthouse. Our penthouse. My penthouse. I poured a glass of scotch, Mark's scotch, ironically, and I sat on the balcony overlooking Central Park. And for the first time in 3 months, I cried. I cried until my ribs hurt. Not for him, not for her, for the 25-year-old girl who thought love meant safety. I mourned her, and then I let her go. So here's where we are now. Mark is facing federal charges for financial fraud and embezzlement. Sarah lost her job, obviously, and moved back to our hometown in Ohio, where rumor has it she's working at a grocery store and living with our aunt. The irony isn't lost on me. I offered her the world, and she chose a man who couldn't even keep his lies straight. Now she has neither. The divorce was finalized in 6 weeks. New York is a no-fault state, but when your husband is indicted for trying to steal your company, the judge tends to side with you. I kept the penthouse. I kept the firm. I kept my kids' respect. Mark got an orange jumpsuit and a public defender. But here's the part people always ask me, the part that keeps me up some nights. Am I in the wrong for setting him up like that? For letting him hand me that box in front of everyone? For planning his downfall with the same precision I used to plan our wedding? Some people say I should have just confronted him privately, taken the high road, kept the family drama out of the public eye. To those people, I say this: the high road is a luxury for people who haven't been targeted for destruction. When someone tries to take your mind, your money, and your legacy, when your own sister wants to lock you away so she can wear your life like a hand-me-down, you don't take the high road. You take the only road that leads to sunrise. And you walk it alone if you have to. I didn't destroy Mark and Sarah, they destroyed themselves. I just stopped cleaning up the mess. I stopped making their cruelty comfortable. And if that makes me the villain in their story, I will wear that title like the diamond necklace I never asked for. So, what did I learn? I learned that loyalty without boundaries is self-betrayal. I learned that the people who want you to be the bigger person are usually the ones who benefit from you staying small. And I learned that the most dangerous woman in the world isn't the one who screams. It's the one who watches, waits, and keeps receipts. If you're going through something like this, if you're sitting there with a gut feeling you can't explain, if you're making excuses for someone's secrecy, if you're ignoring red flags because you don't want to believe the truth, listen to me. Trust yourself, investigate, protect your assets, and when the time comes, strike with precision, not rage. Your future self will thank you. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Am I in the wrong? Was the public exposure too much, or did they deserve every second of it? And if you were in my shoes at that restaurant table holding that necklace, what would you have done? Subscribe if you want more stories like this. I have 25 years of them, and I'm just getting started.